A dream guardian. The shadow crept across Jamie's bedroom wall, growing larger and more monstrous with each passing second. It stretched into the shape of a giant claw, reaching toward his bed. "Mom," Jamie called out, his voice shaking. "The shadow is back." His mother appeared in the doorway, flicking on the light. The terrifying shadow immediately vanished, revealing its true source. The branch of the old oak tree outside his window, swaying in the night breeze. "It's just the tree, honey," Mom said gently, sitting on the edge of his bed. "Remember what we talked about. Sometimes our eyes play tricks on us in the dark." Jamie nodded, but his heart was still racing. This was the third night this week he'd called for his parents because of shadows, creaking sounds, or his own imagination turning harmless objects into monsters. "I know it's not real," he whispered, "but it feels real when the lights are off." Mom smoothed his hair. "Would you like me to leave the hallway light on again?" Jamie nodded, feeling embarrassed. He was 7 years old, practically grown up, and yet he still feared the dark like a baby. After his mother left, Jamie lay awake, watching the strip of light under his door. His eyelids grew heavy, and despite his efforts to stay alert, he drifted off to sleep. He dreamed he was running through a forest at night, something dark and shadowy chasing him. The trees reached out with branch arms, trying to grab him. Just as one caught his sleeve, Jamie tripped over a root and fell. "Help!" he cried out, covering his head with his arms as the shadow loomed over him. "Stop right there," commanded a small but mighty voice. A brilliant blue light flashed, and the shadow creature recoiled with a hiss. Jamie looked up to see the strangest sight: a tiny person, no bigger than his hand, standing protectively in front of him. The little figure wore what looked like armor made of glittering stars, and held a miniature sword that glowed like moonlight. Back away from the dreamer, the tiny guardian ordered the shadow, which was now shrinking and retreating. "This dream is under my protection." With a final whimper, the shadow dissolved into wisps of darkness that faded away into the dream forest. Jamie sat up, staring at his tiny rescuer in wonder. "Who are you?" The small figure turned, revealing a round face with bright, kind eyes that seemed to contain galaxies within them. "I'm Zephyr, Dream Guardian, at your service." He gave a formal bow, his star armor twinkling. "A Dream Guardian?" Jamie repeated. "I've never heard of that." "Most people haven't," Zephyr replied, shrinking his glowing sword until it became a small pendant that he hung around his neck. "We work behind the scenes, keeping nightmares at bay. Though I must admit, yours have been particularly persistent lately." Jamie looked down, embarrassed. "I know I shouldn't be scared. My dad says brave people don't fear the dark." A Zephyr laughed, a sound like tiny bells. "Your father is mistaken. Courage isn't about not feeling fear. It's about facing it. The bravest people I know feel afraid all the time." "Really?" Jamie asked doubtfully. "Absolutely. Come with me. I want to show you something." The dream forest around them shifted and changed, becoming a swirling portal of stars and moonlight. Zephyr floated up to Jamie's shoulder and pointed ahead. "This is the Dream Observatory. From here, we can see anyone's dreams." The starry space resolved into what looked like a giant movie theater with countless screens, each showing different dreams. Zephyr guided Jamie to one particular screen that showed a familiar figure, his father. "That's my dad," Jamie exclaimed. "Indeed," Zephyr nodded. "And this is his dream tonight." In the dream, Jamie's father stood frozen before a large audience, unable to speak, while everyone stared at him expectantly. The dream father's face showed pure terror, Dad's afraid of speaking to crowds. Jamie realized. He's presenting his project at work tomorrow. Everyone fears something, Zephyr explained. Even the bravest adults. Let's look at your mother's dream. Another screen showed Jamie's mother desperately searching through an endless maze, like hospital, calling out for someone she couldn't find. Mom's afraid of losing people she loves, Jamie said softly, recognizing his mother's recurring nightmare that she'd mentioned once at breakfast. Exactly, Zephyr agreed. Fear is not a weakness, Jamie. It's simply part of being human. The question is, what do you do with your fear? The dream observatory faded, and they found themselves back in the dream forest. But it looked different now, less threatening, with moonlight filtering gently through the trees. Your nightmares have been growing stronger because you're fighting your fears the wrong way, Zephyr explained, pacing on a fallen log. You're trying to pretend you're not afraid, pushing the fear down deep inside. But fear is like a shadow. The harder you try to run from it, the bigger it grows. Jamie considered this. So what should I do instead? Face it, Zephyr said simply. Look directly at what scares you. When you shine a light on shadows, they shrink. The Dream Guardian pulled the pendant from around his neck, and it transformed back into the glowing sword. This is a courage light. I'd like you to hold it. Jamie tentatively took the tiny sword, which grew in his hand until it fit perfectly in his grip. It felt warm and vibrated slightly, like a tuning fork. No? Zephyr instructed. I want you to think about the shadows in your room that frighten you. Jamie closed his eyes and pictured the claw, like shadow on his wall. To his surprise, the shadow appeared before them in the dream, forest, looming and threatening. It's just a tree branch, Jamie whispered, his voice shaking slightly. Yes, but in the darkness your imagination gives it power, Zephyr explained. Now, raise the courage light and declare what it really is. Jamie lifted the glowing sword. You're just a tree branch. You can't hurt me. The light from the sword touched the shadow, which immediately transformed into the harmless oak branch it truly was. Well done. Zephyr clapped his tiny hands. Now, what else frightens you at night? One by one, Jamie confronted his fears in the dream. The creaking sound from his closet, just the house settling. The occasional tap at his window, an acorn falling from the tree, the strange shape on his chair, his pile of clothes. With each confrontation, Jamie felt a little braver, a little stronger. The courage light grew brighter in his hand. You're doing wonderfully, Zephyr encouraged. But there's one fear you haven't faced yet, the biggest one. Jamie knew immediately what the Dream Guardian meant. The monster under my bed, he whispered. As soon as he spoke, the dream forest darkened, and a low growling sound emerged from the shadows. Something was slithering toward them, something with glowing red eyes and too many teeth. Jamie's hand trembled, and he took a step backward. I can't face that one. It's too scary. You can, Zephyr said firmly, hovering near his ear. Remember, courage isn't about not feeling fear. It's about facing it despite being afraid. The monster crept closer, its form shifting and changing, sometimes looking like a giant spider, sometimes like a scaly dragon, sometimes like a creature Jamie couldn't even describe. What is it? Jamie asked, his voice barely audible. It's fear itself, Zephyr explained. The fear of the unknown, of what might be lurking in the darkness. It takes different shapes because it has no true form of its own. It borrows forms from your imagination. Jamie gripped the courage light tighter, its warmth spreading up his arm. If it comes from my imagination, he reasoned, Then I can change it, right? Zephyr's eyes widened with delight. Now you're understanding. Taking a deep breath, Jamie stepped forward, pointing the glowing sword at the shifting monster. I know you're not real. You're just in my head, and I don't want to imagine scary things anymore. The creature hesitated, its form wavering. In fact, Jamie continued, feeling bolder. If I'm going to imagine something under my bed, it might as well be something nice. He closed his eyes and concentrated hard, picturing something completely different. When he opened his eyes again, the terrifying monster had transformed into a fluffy, blue creature that looked like a cross between a cat and a rabbit, with gentle eyes and floppy ears. That's much better, Jamie declared, lowering the sword. The blue creature gave a friendly purr and nuzzled against Jamie's leg before hopping away into the dream forest. Zephyr was practically glowing with pride. That was brilliant, Jamie. You didn't just face your fear, you transformed it. That's the highest form of dream mastery. The dream forest began to fade around them, growing misty and distant. Jamie knew he was starting to wake up. Will I see you again? He asked Zephyr quickly. I'm always nearby when dreamers need protection, Zephyr assured him. But I have a feeling you might not need me quite so often now.